Should you come every 2 weeks? At thousands. In fact, we have a lot of these fermenting boxes full of pods. And you can see when they're all gathered together, they look like a butternut or autumn squash. So it's a very colorful fruit. Now, cocoa pods are cut from cacao trees throughout the world manually. There's no automated machinery to go in there and cut the pods from the tree. And once the pod is cut manually, the beans are extracted manually. And then once the pod's cut manually, the beans are extracted manually. So there's a lot of manual labor in doing cacao, but we have no slave labor on this property except for myself and my wife. Now, when you cut a cocoa pod, you just don't hack through it. A lot of people say, if you cut it, just cut it in two. In fact, a lady one day, she said, how have I cut it? And she just hacked it right in two. If you do hack in two or cut it in two, you're cutting into the beans, and you don't want to do that. So as you strike the pod, you turn it with your knife, turn it as you strike it with your knife. And what you're doing is cutting through the wall of the pod. And voila. Now these are the cocoa beans. Now these cocoa beans have no semblance of a taste or smell of chocolate whatsoever. Very citric and sweet, and very clean to the sense of taste as well as smell. Now you notice a thick walled pod, 90% of the weight is in the pod itself. Some of the wall structures can be as much as a ½ inch thick. But Mother Nature designed it that way. She wanted to entomb the beans in an airtight container, so none of the atmospheric condition could penetrate through the wall of that pod and affect the condition of those beans before it was officially opened. Now Mother Nature also decided to put a white slimy coating on every bean. That's all right. The white slimy coating is called puma. It's a sugar yeast mucilage coating. And Mother Nature put that white slimy coating on every bean for a reason. And she knew as man evolved through the years, they would eventually figure it out. They did. The beans are now exposed to the environment, and in the environment is the oxygen. So the oxygen becomes the catalyst that precipitates the yeast in the coating to start converting sugar to alcohol to CO2. That's your basic fermentation chemical reaction. Now the subtle byproduct of that chemical reaction is heat. So as these beans are now exposed to the environment as well as the oxygen, they will eventually start to ferment. And as they start the fermentation, Mother Nature has given the bean the ability to take the byproduct of heat from the chemical reaction that's occurring and direct that heat to the surface of the bean, creating a surface heat is called ectothermal energy. Mother Nature gave these beans the ability, once they're exposed to the environment, to eventually heat themselves up for one reason, to take that white slimy coating off. And once the coating is off, it reveals a rusty color shell, which you can test by the beans in the dryer, and under that shell is the pure meat of the chocolate called the chocolate nib. If you'd like to pass that around, you can. Now the nib is what goes into your bods when you eat chocolate. That's what chocolate's made out of. And there are also polyphenols are in the nib, so it's very healthy to eat chocolate in its purest, unadulterated, natural form. A lot of people will snack on the nib, and it's very healthy to do so. There are also two strong stimulants in the nib, caffeine and theobromine. 0.5% is caffeine, so when you eat chocolate, you get a little kick of caffeine. But the major kick comes from a very strong stimulant called theobromine. That's how it gets its scientific name, theobromine cacao. Theobromine is 2 to 3% by weight of the cocoa bean. And theobromine can react adversely to certain body chemistries, inducing migraine headaches. We had a lady from Denver a couple of weeks back. She says, ordinarily I don't eat chocolate because I don't relish an opportunity to have a headache. But she says, you tell me this is special chocolate, so I want to go on record as sampling it. So she had a piece of chocolate in one hand and a Tylenol in the other hand. And as soon as she put it on her palate, she started having a dull headache. A gentleman followed her a few weeks or even a month or so later, and he said, you have the same problem? He said, I can eat chocolate on a given day, and the next morning I wake up, I have a headache. So he had a delayed reaction to the theobromine. So 20% of the world does not eat chocolate, and it's not by choice. It's due to the adverse effect of a strong stimulant in chocolate called theobromine. Now that's the downside effect of theobromine, the headaches. The upside effects of theobromine. Theobromine also incites the libido, makes you romantically inclined. That's why gentlemen give chocolate ladies on Valentine's. Now we take the beans and we extract by pulling them off the fibrous membrane. This is called the cocoa placenta. Sure. Now you're probably going to see the gecko coming out to sample all this stuff. Now I'm going to hold this upside down so you can see, but this is the cocoa placenta. This is what the beans were attached to for 65 days internally in the pod while on the tree for ripening. This is al dente in texture, very citric and sweet, and people eat these as snacks throughout the Ecuadorian belt region of the world. In fact, we eat them every 2 weeks, and we'll be eating them Monday when we start extracting these beans. Now, Alton Brown was here from the Food Channel doing a shoot. He was doing his last episode on the Food Channel called Good Eats Chocolates. And we introduced Alton Brown to these placentas, and he really liked them. But he said, you know, they'd be better dipped in chocolate. Now, the Forastero bean is a smaller bean. You can see this is the Forastero, and this is the Criollo. And Mother Nature said the large bean should have a nice heavy-duty coating of puma, so she put a thick coating on it. It takes 6 to 8 days to ferment the Forastero bean. The Criollo bean, being a smaller bean, more rounded like a large peanut, she said, I really don't need to put a thick coating on that, and she didn't. Only takes 4 days to ferment the Criollo bean. Now, whether it is the Forastero, the Criollo, or the hybrid Trinitario, cacao beans are aromatic. They will absorb odors and fragrances in their immediate environment. So when the beans go into these wooden boxes for fermenting, the wood cannot be made of a pine wood. If it is made of a pine wood, the beans actually will absorb the resin or the turpentine right out of the wood. If it's a redwood, it's going to absorb the tannins. If it's an oak wood, the beans are going to assume an oaky flavor. Any paints, lacquers, or thinners applied to the wood, the beans are going to absorb those chemicals. So you have to use a natural and treated wood, which this is. Now this is a natural and treated mahogany wood. And mahogany is a little more expensive than conventional wood, but it's a more durable wood. And you can see when we build the boxes, we use 1-before planks. So we can stack the planks. As we stack them, we separate them to create openings between the planks on all the sides of the box as well as the bottom of the box. Now we've learned that each bean, once it's exposed to the environment, has the ability to generate its own surface heat. So when we put these beans in these boxes and we take 5-gallon buckets and just pour them into the box until the box is full, and you can see that this will demonstrate how they're in there, and they assume a bulk configuration. And you can see each bean is touching each other, and each bean is generating its own surface heat. So it's kind of like the composting effect. They will eventually start sharing the surface heat that they're generating with each other, and then the mass of beans in the fermenter in due time will heat up to 122 degrees. And that white puma coating will clarify to a clear nectar-type liquid. It'll drain off the beans, through the beans, out through the slats on the sides and the bottom of the box. It's known as sweating the cocoa beans, and these are also referred to as sweat boxes. So the beans have the ability, once they're exposed to the environment, to generate their own surface heat so that they can sweat those white coatings off. Now, as the beans are collectively sweating the coating off during the fermentation, there are natural acids created in the fermentation process, specifically acetic and lactic acid. And as the beans are existing in this acetic and lactic acid environment, eventually those two acids will infiltrate into the cocoa bean, combine with the natural citric acid that's naturally in the bean, and it's those three acids that kill the bean and jump starts the flavor. Now, if you were to eat of this bean, which the gecko is doing right now, the coating is very palatable. It's a very sugar-sweet coating, so it's very nice to the palate. But while it's in your mouth, if you elect to chew the bean up, the bean itself is going to have a bland, raw taste. No semblance of a chocolate flavor, even though the chocolate flavor is in this bean. Now, the bean I passed around, if you take the shell off of this and eat of this bean, it's going to have a distinct, bitter chocolate flavor. Because this bean has been fully fermented to incite the flavor and also has been presented to the environment. And the agent in the environment that develops the flavor is the natural sunshine. And the natural sunshine is the best developer of all the world. Now, when the beans come out of the fermented, they're fully fermented, they stink. They smell like dirty socks. And people say, I can't believe chocolate stinks like this. But this is a bacteria aerating process. This is called putrefaction. So a lot of little funky activities going on in the box. beans are exposed to all those little funky activities, so it has no choice but to inherit the odor. Once we present the beans to the environment, odor goes away in a couple of days. The beans also come out of the fermenter once they're fermented plump in moisture, 50% moisture. We have to take the moisture content from 50 down to 7. Takes 22 to 28 days in the constant sunshine. Now we know from experience when given batches of beans have had 22 days of constant sunshine, we know we're approaching that 7% moisture. That's when we use a moisture analyzer to analyze the moisture content. When it's 7% or slightly under, that's when we can burlap bag and store the beans. Cocoa beans at 7% or less in moisture can be stored for years. And 7 is important because if you store cocoa beans at a higher moisture content than 7, as they're resting for a period of time in a warehouse or a storage area somewhere waiting to be made into chocolate, very likely mold will infiltrate. And mold is the enemy, kills the flavor. Now this is where the industry picks up. They don't have to worry about any growing from any drying whatsoever. They have contract with growers throughout the world that do that for them. They just send their buyers out, they buy tons of beans, and they make tons of chocolate. We do it all. Now there are 5 steps to convert this bean into an edible piece of chocolate. Cleaning, roasting, winnowing, conching, and tempering. Cleaning does not mean washing the beans, you're removing extraneous matter. It can be organic, solid matter. First step, removing the impurities. Second step, roasting. It's when we seize and lock the flavor inside the cocoa bean. Now when the beans come out of the roaster, they're toasty in color, but the shell is still intact. The shell is where all the bacteria is, and it's virtually indigestible. So the FDA requires that shell to be cleanly removed. We're now at step 3 called winnowing the cocoa beans. Now, if you ever go into Whole Foods or other gourmet grocery stores or chocolate shop to buy nib to snack on, put it in your yogurt, put it in your smoothies, put it over your ice cream, put it over your salad, whatever you want to do with it, you never see whole bean nib on the market. It's always in pieces. And the reason nib is always sold in pieces on the market, an integral part of a winnower is a breaker. So we pass the fragile, brittle, roasted bean shell intact through a breaker, and the breaker will break the cocoa beans into a commingled material of shell and nib. The shell's aerodynamic, the nib is heavier. When that commingled material emits from the breaker, drops on a vibrating sieve and advances forward, and very shortly comes under the auspice of 4 vacuum tubes. They're called calibrated aspirators. Now when that aerodynamic shell and heavy nib passes beneath those vacuum tubes are being calibrated to lift the aerodynamic shell up in a way that the nib being heavier will not lift, drops into a tray. So that's how you get the shell away from cocoa beans. It's called winnowing the cocoa beans. Once we get all the little pieces of cocoa nib free of shell, we're now ready to make chocolate, and we're now at step 4. Procedure we use is called conching. You'll see the conch when you go through the factory. It's a pivotal piece of equipment. It's called a conch refiner. Not only makes the chocolate, but also attains what is known as texture. It takes 18 hours to make the chocolate. Now once the chocolate is finished being made, it's kind of thick like a loose fudge. So now we have to liquefy it so we can pump it through the pipe systems. We use a soy emulsifier called lecithin. Then we add vanilla. Now on this island on the Hamakua coast in Pauila grows one of the best vanillas in the world, Hawaiian vanilla. I think it's the best because it's Hawaiian. But we can't use it. And the reason we can't use it, Jim Reddycop, who grows it, only has an extract. Extract has an alcohol base. The conch through friction electric heat will generate temperatures of 200-300 degrees. If you mix heat with alcohol, volatilization occurs. And if you use it, the properties of vanilla are volatilized away. Yet the conching procedure requires powdered vanilla, and Jim has chosen not to do a powder. So presently we're importing bourbon vanilla from Madagascar. It's a very expensive powdered form of vanilla, but you have to use the very best vanillas in premium chocolate for number 1, proper flavor enhancement, and number 2, a good quality vanilla will give a life force to a preservative quality to your chocolate. Meaning, if you buy your favorite premium chocolate, no matter where you live in the world, you'll pay good money for it. But it has a shelf life of 4 to 5 years. You do not have to eat it for 4 or 5 years. No one has ever come to this little factory and say, I always leave my chocolate on the shelf 4 or 5 years. Maybe 4 or 5 hours or 4 or 5 minutes. Now we don't make white chocolate because white chocolate is not chocolate. White chocolate is extruded yellow cocoa butter, sugar, milk, and vanilla. FDA allows them to call it chocolate because you're eating a component of the cocoa bean. But you're not eating the nib of the chocolate, you're eating a yellow butter that's been squeezed out of the cocoa bean.